Yeah.
Last year.
You know, it's been a lockdown. So now that it's open up,
You have no idea.
I mean, you know,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, so weather, you know, climate, all that.
Yeah. The ends on our, like, she's amazing on her board. I can go on
Marketing decided.
Oh, yeah, just right here, sorry. You gotta prep the box, right? Oh, we're good.
I can't see anything, so I don't know. Tell me when I'm starting. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm Joe Farr, Chair of 2021 Chair of AED. Glad to have you here. I want to thank all of today's attendees in person as well as virtual. Today we've got our media partner, Albuquerque Business First, that is going to be broadcasting this thing, I guess. For those of you who are watching this program today remotely on Zoom, we're excited to have you and look forward to having everybody in person in the near future. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later, but we'll see. Following the program, we'll share a link with all attendees where you can download the new report from our website. I'm also looking forward to having, I hear there's a guy, something by the name of Jim, something or other, that is kind of a wallflower. He's going to be talking today and really coming out of his shell, from what I hear. I've been called worse. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Danielle Casey. She is our president of AED, and she'll come to the microphone and give us a little bit of information on what's coming up.
Oh, wow. It's been a long time since I've had any kind of crowd applause in any kind of live event. So thank you all so much. Thank you all who are here in person, kind of making that leap of faith. My guess is, if not all of us, the vast majority of folks here are probably double vaccinated already. So congratulations, round of applause to yourselves on that. And it's great to be here at Albuquerque. It was a beautiful day. For those of you watching online, you really should have tried to get an in-person ticket, but that's all right. Okay, so this report was just, it was a tremendous collaboration between AED and the CBRE research, business development, as well as our marketing teams. Now, teams is a loose phrase. It may be one or two people in each of our organizations, but that's okay. We're lean and mean. We've been meeting weekly over the past several months. We kind of tossed out this idea of collaborating to create a better marketing piece and a way to reach outside of our market and promote our assets. And so we've been having these regular weekly meetings and grinding through all of the research, and it's really, really been a fun endeavor. And so essentially, we've back and forth shared data sets on what we think is a really, really compelling value proposition for business, as well as for talent looking in our region and thinking about what we have to offer. So why does this matter, right? According to Area Development Magazine's annual corporate and consultant survey, which comes out every year, hence the word annual, availability of skilled labor again has ranked #1 in their list of top site selection factors. And over again, as I've had more and more companies reaching out to me in any market I've been in, it's very prevalent that the first question they're asking me is, great, tell us about your labor, tell us about your workforce, tell us about those assets, and then we'll talk about sites and opportunities. So we really have to be ahead of the curve on this information. And we've got an amazing story to tell, as you're going to hear from the very, very shy Jim here in a minute. So AED, by the way, is already experiencing tremendous year. Since the start of 2021, January 1, we've opened around 70 new leads, and about half of those have been direct calls to us from companies or from national site selection consultants. So tremendous activity. And actually this level of interest, while I think you could assume that it far exceeds that of 2020, it's actually outpacing year to date compared to 2019. So very, very good, right? But all the leads in the world, of course, don't matter. Closing the deals matters. And a tool like this today helps us do that. We can't relax and assume that business opportunities are simply going to pop in our lap. All the other states and regions, I can tell you, across the country, they have been retooling and reinvesting in economic development, recovery plans, and target business attraction work and marketing efforts like never before, and so are we. So this is one of the many, many new tools that we've added to the toolbox already this year. We've done other new things like gotten a MetroComp tool and economic impact tools, thanks to the really spirited support of many of our board members. So I see this as a new milestone in creative approaches to promoting our region. And selfishly, I have to mention, okay, this is about my 6-month mark here at AED. So again, my own milestone for being here and actually getting in front of people and being here for 6 months. And I'm just having the time of my life. And it's such a thrill to see so many of you. So I hope you're all as excited about this report as we are. It is designed to be a tool and resource for all of Greater Albuquerque, by the way. And you'll see that in the report. Those of you from other parts of the region, you'll see that we really took the time and effort to also talk about the greater region and looked at labor and data from a regional perspective, because that's how companies are choosing markets. So this is going to be utilized, by the way, at upcoming market visits and trade shows. I will be at the Industrial Asset Management Council Conference in Fort Worth in June, representing the region, and I will be showing around this report like mad, probably driving a few people crazy, but that's all right. So it's going to be going around, we're going to be blasting it out, and hopefully it's going to get us a lot of new traction and eyes. So now for the unveiling of this report is the ever engaging and animated Jim Chynoweth. Jim serves as managing director, as you all probably know, but if you don't, I don't know what rock you've been living under, I'll blame COVID. He serves as the managing director for the CBRE office here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's held this position since 2004. As managing director, Jim is responsible for the fun and merriment and possibly daily torture, however you like to look at it, of 50 professionals across multiple service lines. And he's in charge of keeping their clients entertained, not a bad gig. So with that, Jim, take it over.
Thank you for that stirring introduction. Pleased to see everyone in person here. Pleased to, well, actually, I'm not sure I'm pleased to see the people on the internet, but anyway, thanks for coming out, because I can't see. So it was a natural for CBRE to partner with AED on this project. They have been a phenomenal partner and resource of ours over the years, and just love the energy that Danielle has brought to this position. Let's give her another round of applause. We were very lucky to get her, and she has been a rock star. This information is something that we've compiled with to prove to everyone else, because we already know it, what a great community Albuquerque is. And I've been out here for over 30 years, love it. I think everyone else should love it as well. So this report's going to prove that out. Much of the data we already know intrinsically, but it's nice to have it validated. And so we will start with, and for those of you at home, hopefully you're getting little screenshots that come up. These guys have the report in front of them, so they have the ability to go in depth. We'll start with trying to show people who's here now. Now, don't get excited. We're not going to name anyone by name, but 19.1% of you are between the ages of 50 and 49 or 64. Let's see, 19.1% of you are the ages 50 to 64. So that pretty much accounts for a good portion of the people in the audience. So that's as close as we get to calling you by name. In these 14-year groupings, you can see that we have pretty even distribution of population. And thus we can pull resources from all different kinds of age groups. Our median age for Albuquerque is 37 years, 10 months, and 24 days. Now, anyone who is that old, who's in the audience here, doesn't count for you people at home, gets a free mattress from Tempur-Pedic, assuming that you were born at 2:30. Anyone? Rocks? No, sorry. The national average is 38 and a half years. So we're a little bit below the national average as far as our median age. Through the magic of drive time analysis, we can show that there are over 1 million people who live within an hour's drive of our of I-25 and I-40. Now, this same drive time map would cover about a 3-block area of Los Angeles. But in New Mexico, we can actually get out to Klein's Corners, which really help pull up our numbers. Let's see, as you might expect, most people are migrating into Albuquerque from the 2 major metro areas in our region, Denver and Phoenix. Then we've got our friends from Hollywood or Los Angeles, which is the next major market that brings in migration. And then interestingly enough, the next one is Washington, D.C., which speaks to our heavy government presence. And we are bringing in an awful lot of talent from the DC area. The other major markets bringing in people are your larger cities and some of our other regional neighbors. Let's see. Now I have no idea where I am because I don't have a screen in front of me. But anyway, so one of the strongest attributes of our community is its diversity. Something corporate America is now realizing is critical to their future success. As former AED board chair, Roberta Cooper-Ramo likes to say, in New Mexico, we embrace and cherish our diversity. It is a part of who we are. Now, I don't know if you actually said that, but I'm paraphrasing. I'm paraphrasing. I'm trying to make you sound good. As companies scramble to achieve this diversity, Albuquerque really becomes a very appealing alternative to hit your diversity goals. I think this is going to be one of our strong suits as we move forward. Now we're going to show what the talent pool looks like. So we have an impressive pipeline of students coming out of New Mexico higher education institutions. Over half of them are coming out of University of Arizona, my school's University of Arizona, sorry. University of New Mexico, and in CNN, both of which are based in Albuquerque, and both of which have phenomenal programs, nationally rated programs. One of the keys for any community looking to grow is to have a strong research university and to have a strong community college trade school. We have both with UNM and CNN. This will bode well for us moving forward. So our percentage of college graduates is competitive with the national average and places us in the middle of where our peer cities fall in this category. Not only that, our number of graduates between 2019 or between 2014 and 2019 grew by nearly double the national average. So we're really making great strides in this area. Also wanted to comment that while we have a source for the fact that 64.5% of our population has some college education, I estimate that 91.3% 3% of our population has attended some college party. So why would someone move to Albuquerque? Why? Now, other than the fact that there are so many lovely people who already live here, that's sort of a given. And we'll even count some of you people at home. Cost of living is one of the primary reasons that companies are interested in moving here and their people are interested in moving here. As many of our regional competitors have now exceeded the national average in cost of living, we are still comfortably below that threshold. You could say we're below average, and this is one of those few times when being below average is actually good. Housing cost is one of the primary factors driving that low cost of living. And as home ownership gets out of reach for a lot of people around the country, in Albuquerque, what is it, nearly 60% of our population owns a home, much higher than what you see as a national average. Let's see, anything else that you, okay. What other employers have chosen Albuquerque? We've got an impressive list of companies, world-class, and many of our new arrivals are phenomenal companies, one of which soon to be you're going to hear from today. So we already have a great cast of companies that have chosen Albuquerque and are thriving here. So every community touts quality of life, but we actually mean it. Now, access to nature, access to the arts, access to your neighborhood brew pub, all of these things can be done in Albuquerque. In fact, most of the things on the screen right now can be done in one day if you're really ambitious, which is why we didn't think to put anything for the nightlife, because we're too exhausted. Albuquerque is still one of the easiest cities to get around in by car. I love taking out-of-state clients on the freeway during rush hour and complaining about having to slow down to 55 miles per hour and getting the reaction from them. You can really tell that Albuquerque is a great city to drive. Look at how happy this guy is. Okay, you can tell that he's driving in Albuquerque. Now, how does the cost of doing business in Albuquerque stack up to other regional markets? Well, this report shows you, and we look marvelous. The AED team has put together a first-year operating cost comparison with peer markets for a hypothetical manufacturing company and software development company, and have run the numbers of what that first year is going to cost them. And we've come out in very good shape. And as you can tell from the graph, we expect to see a lot of interest in this analysis from our friends in Los Angeles. Our economic development experts and state and local government representatives have worked together to come up with some great incentives for expanding companies in Albuquerque. Best of all, these incentives are available both to new companies coming in and our existing companies. And as much as I'd like to do a deep dive with you on the single weighted sales factor, due to time constraints, I'm going to need to pass on that one, particularly since Deb Inman isn't here to set me straight. So lastly, near and dear to my heart, our real estate costs are very competitive across the country, or in comparison to other markets across the country. Now, if you can't read this, the On the left is office rates. On the right is industrial rates. Red is expensive. Orange, if it turned out orange, is neutral or medium priced. And green is inexpensive or value, as we like to say in marketing. You can tell the only two markets that are green in both categories is Albuquerque and Cleveland. And if you pick Cleveland, you have to live there. So I think we're in good shape in that regard. So before I get kicked off the podium, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you a legend in the commercial real estate industry nationally. My friend who is going to join us live. Does he have internet access now? Okay, so we're hoping.
Tyler.
You've got it, okay. So Eric Stavriotis is a bit of a national celebrity. He's graciously agreed to join us and offers perspective on the data report, as well as share some insights on the national trends impacting corporate real estate decision making. Eric is an executive vice president and leader of CBRE's Location Incentives Group. His team assists clients globally in site selection and economic incentive negotiations. Eric resides in the windy city of Chicago. And Eric, are you a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan?
Of course, I would be a New York Mets fan. What else?
Oh, killing me. So your wife's a White Sox fan, though, right?
She is. Diehard Southsider.
Okay. I love that lady. I bring to you Eric.
Thank you, Jim. Great to be with this team virtually, hopefully very soon on the ground one day. We will kind of try to be brief here on some of the national trends and get right to what we think is a really interesting time for markets like Albuquerque. So I'll just kind of hit on what we're seeing a little bit anecdotally, then we'll jump into some data and then maybe leave some time for Q&A. But just to hit it directly, we think right now is a really, really huge opportunity and a great time to be in markets like Albuquerque. So, what do we mean by that? I think number one, the office sector has had perhaps its worst run in the last 12 months, due to COVID. But coming out of that, we see some really positive signals on the ground right now. And markets like Albuquerque are really, really well positioned, we think, to take advantage of all the momentum and all the change going on. So we'll talk about that. I think industrial, there's a very similar narrative. And we'll kind of talk about some data points that kind of prove that out. But we think, there's opportunity in both those sides of the market. I won't speak to retail and multifamily and some other sectors that we're not experts in and we don't deal with it every day. I'll just kind of speak to office and industrial. But we think it's a really great time. So we'll jump into some of the data that explains why, and it's some really boring numbers on a page type slides. So we'll just try to breeze through it pretty quickly, and then again open it up for Q&A. So please do not read this, but this will go out to this whole team as a follow-up. So we just wanted to kind of provide some data in case anybody wanted to dig into this after the fact. Hitting on industrial first. The industrial market's probably as hot as it's ever been, certainly in my 20-year career and probably even beyond. The amount of demand that we are seeing in the market today nationally is just unheard of. And you see a bunch of stats here, but the demand is off the charts, both in terms of distribution, e-com fulfillment, and manufacturing. And I really think for a market like Albuquerque, the manufacturing side of that ledger is where there's a lot of opportunity. So we'll dig into that. You can see here, some snazzy colors and lines, but really, if you look at that lighter green line, what that shows you is the availability of product is at an all-time low, maybe with respect to one other period of time over the last 30 years. So there is hardly any product available in the United States. And if there is product coming out of the ground now in your market, or that can come out of the ground, you should encourage it, especially if that is for manufacturing. Labor is a fascinating story. We've got a huge labor analytics team and a huge research team here at CB. Jim, you know who I'm talking about, that has put together a lot of great thought leadership in this space. But what we're seeing is we had this enormous shock, right, to the labor markets last year. And that led to some really terrible conditions for a big chunk of the workforce, for longer than 12 months. But if you look at what's going on, that has quickly changed and is changing rapidly right now. I think on Tuesday this week, the data point came out that there are over 8 million posted job openings in the United States alone. That's 8 million unfilled job openings in this country. There's a ton of opportunity out there, and we think this orange line in terms of unemployment rate is going to continue to go down and go down quickly. We think we're actually going to end up in a potential for a labor shortage in the US very, very quickly. So lots and lots of opportunity for net new job creation if we could find the roles to fill it. Net absorption, you can see, the higher the bar chart here, the more space is being taken for industrial and logistics projects. You can see that's kind of at an all-time high over the last 10 years. So massive absorption going on. And then here you can see it by market. Look at the bottom bullet though. I think this is why I wanted to pull this slide in and why it speaks to what we're feeling, is the data shows that the interior West, so think of the West Coast, but take away the coast, is the fastest growing section of the industrial market in the country. And Albuquerque is right in the middle of that. So if you look at that segment and those deals, we think in the distribution side of that is very technical and very demand and supply driven. The e-com fulfillment is similar, but perhaps has some more opportunity. But the manufacturing side is going to continue to grow. And we think Albuquerque is a great market for that, especially for companies that are trying to get product to the central part of the United States and the western part of the United States that might not want to be in Texas and compete with other manufacturers there, might want to be a little closer to the coast, but not want to be in California, Arizona, Nevada. There's a lot of opportunity. And we think a lot of projects that'll be floating around looking for space. If you've got the space and you've got a product to show them, or you can get out of the ground quickly and can play to the speed to market advantage, I think you guys could be in a position to win. And this just shows the fundamentals are good there. So if you're trying to encourage development, even speculative development, whether it's from a national developer perspective or a local, the potential rent that they can bring to bear for a project is positive right now. So much so that some developers probably just want to stick to their core markets, and that might work against some of the secondary and tertiary markets like Albuquerque and work in favor of, LA and New Jersey and some of the, Atlanta, Dallas, the more established markets. But still opportunity abounds, we think. If you shift over to the office side, this is where personally I think there's a really interesting story. So, as we know, office demand has been in a free fall since last February. The data suggests that is still the case. However, if you're looking for some positivity, you're not going to find it in this slide where it shows, net absorptions continue to go down and vacancies are still going up. That has not yet changed. But, the data is always looking back a month or two or more. You can see vacancy here still increasing significantly, both in terms of downtown markets and suburban markets. But if you're looking for, and sublease as well, but if you're looking for some green shoots, you can see them start to form here. And again, we'll send this out. If you're looking for some good news, the very tail end of this chart, the thin green line, you can see it just start to pick up. Now, again, you need to have rose-colored glasses to feel like there's some good news in this chart, but it's there. And what it's showing is that occupancy is just now starting to pick up on the office side nationally. And if you're looking at some other reasons why this might be happening, certainly the vaccine adoption continues to pick up. Just anecdotally, so Jim, you've been to our Chicago office. We have had on average 20 to 40 people come into this office every day. I'm here today, over the last 6 months. Yesterday and today, there were 80 or more people both days. So kind of doubling of what we've seen over the last 6 to 8 months. And just walking around downtown yesterday, trying to cross the street, I couldn't cross the street because I would have gotten hit by a car. Whereas the last 12 months, I could have walked down any street in the middle of it and not gotten hit by anything. So we're really starting to see a pickup here. And I think, at least from our perspective, a lot of that has to do with the vaccine. This is a slide that speaks to not necessarily transactions that are getting done today, but this is speaking to the number of companies or tenants that are in the market looking for space. And look at how much that's gone up in the last 12 months, right? You had this huge dip in March of last year to kind of the doldrums of where we were in the summer. But look at how much that's rallied in the last 6 months. There are a lot of companies out there looking at what their strategy should be, and they're in the market looking for space. So what does that mean for a market like Albuquerque? Look at all the press you've seen about markets like a Boise or a Greenville, South Carolina, and the list goes on of other secondary and tertiary markets that have been net winners in this entire migration that we've seen in the last 12 months. You know, the markets that have been losers have been the San Franciscos and New Yorks. That's been well publicized. We think in Albuquerque belongs in that conversation. And at least our team that does a lot of national work, we've always had an affinity for that market, especially from a white collar and a tech talent perspective. I think the time is now, right? This is a great market that has a lot to speak to. Jim, you guys just spoke to the rankings around diversity. That couldn't be more relevant today. And I think, you know, a market like Albuquerque needs to be big and bold and put itself out there, because the time is now for a lot of these companies that are looking at their footprint nationally. And many of them are looking to pick a new place. Many of them are looking to plant a new flag and to be a little bit of a market maker, be a little bit more of an employer of choice, and find a market where they can establish a brand. And I think Albuquerque is that exact type of market. You can see here, what are these companies looking for as they're looking at space and as they're looking at new markets? They want flexibility. So having product is really important. You know, if they come to market and they love what they see on the talent side and the diversity side and the quality of life side, you got to show them the product. And they're going to want to see cool, edgy office space. They're going to want to see co-working. They're going to want to see flexibility. And if you have it, they're going to pull the trigger. And if you don't have it, we'd encourage you to explore adding it to the market as quickly as possible. So again, you know, we think the sun is coming out on all this in the last 12 months, and we're fairly bullish. And I think, you know, just personally, every time I've visited Albuquerque, you know, for years and years, coming to see Gary and tour the market with clients, we've always thought there was a great story to tell, and I think you guys are sitting in a really great time right now. So thank you for having me. Hopefully this was helpful in terms of guiding the conversation. And if there's questions and you can facilitate and I can hear, I'd love to open it up to the audience. So thank you.
Okay. Nice. That sounds like a challenge. I gotta say, not fun. This is a wooden podium because our technology seems to be working beautifully, and we're doing this, bringing you in from Chicago. We're doing this live on a patio on a beautiful, beautiful day here in Albuquerque out at a restaurant, and the internet seems to be holding up. So I'll just cross my fingers for that. But and by the way, you can't see her, but Elena on our team is doing all of our broadcast and digital media. She's amazing. And give her a hand for the puppet master back there. Eric, yes, absolutely. Well, so here's where the benefit comes from actually showing up live in person. Does anyone in the audience, I'm putting you all on the spot, have a question? And I'll run the mic over there or restate your question for Eric so he can hear it. Anybody? Anybody? Nothing. Oh, okay. Well, we had one that said he didn't want to embarrass the city, but I don't know what that means. You know, yeah, I'll just kick one off really quick, and we just have a couple of minutes for these. But Eric, it's such a pleasure to hear you talk about all of the market opportunities. I always like to ask questions as an economic developer in a region and understand where do you, if there's another community or region that you think we should be keeping an eye on because they're doing it really well, or they've got some stuff that's popping tremendously that could be a good case study or example for us. Are there any out there? And by the way, are there any out there that we should avoid at all costs? Their behavior.
The good, the bad, the ugly, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're looking for a timely example of a community that has positioned itself well, especially if you think about that sort of white collar tech segment of the talent spectrum, I think what Boise, Idaho is doing is really interesting. I think what Greenville, South Carolina has done recently. I even look at like a Columbus, Ohio, where 20 years ago, you had a college town that also had, a big segment of government, state government as well, but that had a decent number of corporate occupiers in town, but really had never done the full storytelling of the possibilities of a market. And over the last 10 years, they've been just beating that drum and really pulling together all of the different threads of what they can offer to a company, or whether that's a startup or a Fortune 500 brand. And they've done a great job of really doing kind of that 1 + 1 = 3 and making that market really stand out nationally. So I'd offer those three up as really good examples that a lot of that was driven by economic development. A lot of it also is just driven by the private sector sort of just locking arms and saying, we've got a great story to tell. So I think those are three great examples.
Well, thanks, Eric. That's actually great because we're working on a strategic plan process right now. And the ones you mentioned are all ones that we are flagging and that we're already looking at. So that tells me our consultants know what they're doing. So I'm really excited about that.
I didn't do that ahead of time, so that wasn't planned.
Great. Anybody else have any questions? Joe Farr has a question. I don't know if this mic is going to reach. I'm going to try it. Okay.
What incentives or legislative feats are you looking at in other markets that you think are successful in attracting?
And if you didn't hear that, what legislation, incentives, other things like that are you seeing in other markets that are very successful right now?
Yeah, good question. So I think a couple of things. I think flexibility is important. So to the extent that from a policy perspective or an incentive perspective or an economic development perspective, you can inject flexibility into the toolkit, I think that's critical. Not all projects are going to look the same, and you need to have that sort of flexibility to address different needs. I think there's no question that some of the communities that we just talked about have really tried to build out their infrastructure. So if you build it, they will come. And that could mean helping the university build out, a research part of the campus that could attract private enterprise. That could mean building out your airport. That could mean a lot of different things. For Greenville, South Carolina, it was building out the downtown along the river to have, museums and open areas for concerts and quality of life and nightlife, but for other markets, it was building out a research institute. So, you don't want to be too prescriptive. You guys know your market best. I think that's an important thing. I think on the incentive side, it's recognizing that some projects are going to be very heavy payroll based and light on investment. They need office space and they need people and they need to go, right? And other projects are going to be very capital intensive. If you speak to manufacturing or life sciences, they may only hire 200 people, but they could be spending a couple $100 million in the ground, right? So I think understanding those different dynamics and being flexible is critical.
Awesome. Okay, we have another one.
Hi, Danielle. Ken Davis from Bar.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, by the way.
Thank you.
I met you in person last
I know, it's like I'm not an anime or something.
On the flip side of Joe's question, I hate to bring it to the negative, but on the legislative advocacy, policy, regulatory perspective, what are some of the landmines that are deal breakers? What do we need to do to make sure we avoid them?
Good question, and I'll restate that for Eric. On the legislative policy advocacy side, what are some big landmines that you all watch out for as you're advising clients that could be deal breakers?
Yeah, good question. It's tough to give one uniform answer because every client will look at that differently, right? Some are looking at the regulatory issues for their specific industry. So we were just working a big site selection for a company in the aerospace aviation sector. There was a bill being considered in one of the states that they were looking at that would have significantly increased their cost of doing business. So that was just something they looked at and frankly communicated, this wouldn't work for us, right? So there's a lot of industry specific pieces. I think a lot of companies generally are looking for less red tape when it comes to permitting and sort of getting a project off the ground, sort of that speed to market. In some parts of the country, you can get your building permits in 2 weeks. In other parts of the country, it takes 15 months. So I think that's a big thing to look at. I think a lot of times clients are keeping a close eye on sort of the unionization activity, the immigration conversations, a lot of the policy around diversity. You've seen some states really stub their toe for a moment in time with different legislation, and then it goes away and things open back up again. I won't be too specific about what states and what sort of bills, but you guys can guess what I'm getting at. So I think for the most part, companies are just looking for an environment where there's not going to be too much of a prescriptive landscape around things that could slow down either their ability to hire and retain talent, recruit talent in the market, or get their project up and running. After that, they're willing to adapt and they're willing to know how to handle the rules of the road as long as they're not going to change too much. So kind of a vanilla answer, but it's not the same thing for every client.
All right, speed to market and certainty. We hear that quite a bit. All right. Bob, who wanted to speak before, is now brave enough to raise his hand. So we're gonna close the questions with you, Bob. What do you have?
Thank you, Eric. Nice to meet you. My dad used to be a bat boy for the White Sox.
I don't know if you heard that, Eric. He said his dad used to bat boy for the White Sox. So rub that in your wife.
I love it.
Comparatively speaking, in your maybe not global in the total perspective that you look at, but certainly well versed on the national scape of the cities that we're all talking about. Comparatively speaking, with your knowledge of Albuquerque, give us another city that parallels us.
All right, and so just to restate that for folks online, and if you can't hear Eric, comparatively speaking, he's asking for what's another market that is on parallel with us in your mind nationally?
For me and our team, and I think the projects we've worked on over the last 20 years, I personally think of Albuquerque in the same vein as I think of a Boise. It used to be that, if you had projects looking in the West Coast, they were looking at your bulge bracket markets like LA, San Francisco. The next wave became Phoenix, Denver, to a lesser extent, Las Vegas. And then all of a sudden this huge pull of Texas, right? Dallas, Houston, Austin, et cetera. I always felt, and of course I'm skipping sort of Seattle and Portland from a huge technology perspective as well. But as you think more well-rounded around industrial or tech, I've always felt markets like a Boise or like an Albuquerque should be able to compete in that space and win their fair share. I think Boise's done that as of late. You've seen a huge outmigration from the Seattles and Portlands and San Franciscos to Boise for quality of life. You've seen now a huge housing boom. And I think you're going to see more corporations follow as that talent and job spectrum just presents a greater and greater opportunity for them to hire. And I think Albuquerque should be able to play in that same space. So it's just telling the story and having the product and being ready for the moment, and then doing that, outward economic development that this team is doing, and this team is a really great advocate for you guys nationally. So, it's just trying to increase those at bats at this point to steal the Bat Boy storyline from earlier. So thank you.
Very good. All right. Well, everyone online, you can wave, and everybody here, please, a big round of applause to Eric. I want to extend thanks to the CBRE team for getting him. He is a sought after speaker. So it's great to see you again, Eric. All right. So we are going to transition. So hopefully everybody that's also watching us online continues to hang on, because we've got a really fantastic panel to round out the day. It's going to be a great conversation. So to add some additional points of view, I'm super delighted. We've got two exciting business representatives joining us for a panel discussion. They are both experiencing tremendous growth, and they really exemplify what this talent industry report is all about. Moderating today is Cynthia Schultz. She's the CEO of Bradbury Stam Construction and also our AED chair-elect. I gotta make that even the most important thing for me, right? Anyway, so Bradbury Stam Construction is based in Albuquerque. It is New Mexico's largest women-owned business and largest construction company. So pretty impressive. With a nearly 100-year heritage, Cynthia has run the family business since 2010 and is proud that it is the best place to work for the last 5 years. And she's also obviously very proud of the longevity of their 190 associates that average 10 years with the company, which is really amazing. She has an economics degree from the University of Chicago and a master's in construction management from ASU. So please welcome Cynthia to the stage. And she is going to in turn introduce our panelists and the conversation.
Thanks, Danielle. That's kind of exciting, microphones and all kinds of stuff. So, well, we'll see how we kind of do this with the panel and the camera. Hopefully it kind of catches everybody. Very excited to have Leanne Kravitz, who's, I want to get her title right. Anyway, she's the regional site leader for Fidelity here. And they're going through a recruitment effort of more than 4,000 folks nationally and near 300 here in Albuquerque, which is really exciting and really wonderful to have her here. Fidelity Investments operating financial performance in 2020 was one of the best in their 75-year history as a private company. And the pandemic this past year has had clients reaching out to them more and more as they're planning and seeing what's happening with the markets. This strong client growth and engagement is why Fidelity is looking for these 4,000 customer-obsessed people to join their valued team to support customers and to experience their own career growth opportunities. They're very proud of their industry-leading benefits, such as flexible work options, student loan debt repayment assistance, and relief delay days due to the pandemic, to name a few. I would say the opportunity to work in Albuquerque, which is wonderful. Also here today, and I think we're going to hear more about this lady and her company in the near term, so we're excited about that, is Katie King. She's the CEO of LQ Digital. LQ Digital solves the problem many companies struggle with in the digital age: how to drive profitable growth. LQ achieves this for leading brands such as USAA, Morningstar, PennyMac, VMware, and McAfee by driving digital demand generation, paid search, paid media, paid social affiliate marketing, and maximum conversations through a speed to lead approach in its contact center. Again, we're going to hear more about this company and what they do, I think, in the next few months. They take these sales and marketing tactics to generate impressive top line, bottom growth. Not only is Katie the CEO, she also leads the strategic growth and operational excellence for the company. Prior to LQ, Katie served as CMO of Lithium Technologies, a leading community and social platform sold to digital marketers. and also was the Executive Vice President of Marketing at Service Source and Vice President of E-commerce at Intraware. Katie began her career at Bank of America in the Technology Finance Group, focused on funding emerging companies. Katie holds an MBA from the Kellogg Graduate School of Management and an undergraduate degree in history from the University of Virginia. So it was a lot, but I think Katie's new to most of us here, so it's pretty exciting. I think you guys should come up and sit down. Right, now I'm going to give you guys the microphone. All right, hopefully everyone can kind of see everyone on the Zoom as well. So Katie, what about Albuquerque's labor force was most appealing to you for hiring?
It's interesting watching all this presentations. I feel like I'm the newbie that has just gone through the sales cycle. So I get to kind of lend some evidence to this. So I would say, just to give you a sense, we have 300 employees. So we're not Fidelity. I was laughing on the junior varsity to this wonderful brand here with Leanne. But we have 300 employees nationally and made a decision that we were going to put down our flag for the next wave of strategic growth. And what we started with was a litmus test on values. It was just, you couldn't make the litmus test if you couldn't meet what the company values were. And we wanted to hire locally, but we wanted to infuse clearly what our principles are. And so the values of LQ are just hard work. We call it hustle. We talk about just truth, just really believe in honesty. We talk about ownership, just own your stuff, get it done, and pride. And so as we went through the cities, we were really looking for a workforce that would reflect our values. And it was a lot, we talked to a lot of contact centers that are trying to do a wage arbitrage. How do we get a more effective, cost-effective work? And that was just not our game. Our game was, how do we take the game up in terms of service, in terms of quality, and hire a talent pool that would stick with us and grow with us. So it was a big decision for the company, and we can go into why I thought Albuquerque was all those things, but clearly we're coming, so you guys can come figure it out.
Yeah, that sounds great. What training programs have you guys been finding the most helpful?
Training programs. So when we first opened here, we certainly made use of JTIP, which helped us get our workforce up and running in a cost-effective way. But since then, we've also worked a lot with UNM. And UNM was really flexible and accommodating when we wanted to start a certified financial planning course here. So that was very helpful to have in our backyard. We also we do about 16 weeks of in-house training ourselves before people are really on the phones on their own. So the training here is pretty intense. But as we're talking about hiring, I do want to stress that you don't have to have a finance degree. You don't have to be a certified financial planner to come work at Fidelity. Those 16 weeks will more than qualify you to get a good start on the jobs here and continue to grow from there. But JTIP really was a critical factor.
What about you, Pete?
It's similar with JTIP. I mean, I don't know if the group is here. I think we're meeting with them back downtown, but they were really flexible. I mean, this is a really interesting post-COVID or mid-COVID story, which is you have to be executing a lease. You have to be really physically here in New Mexico to benefit from JTIP. And yet I was watching 100 remote employees be hired in Texas. And I was like, we just haven't hammered out the lease, we're coming. And so JTIP really was trying to be flexible with us to ramp with us in a remote environment until we get our site fully up and running. So JTIP was a key partner for us. And I'm sure they've been waiting for us to kind of catch up with all of our operations so that we can ramp to the extent we told them that we can. But they've been really a fantastic representative, I think, of the state as we've thought about coming here. And flexible, right? Like no one's nailing a lease in the middle of COVID when you can't even get there to see the property. And so I just thought it showed some creative thinking that clearly none of those benefits will be paid until we can produce. Yes, we are here, but it gave us an ability to kind of get going instead of a slow start.
Oh, that's really great. So Leanne, how does the productivity level out of Albuquerque compare with the other internal sites of Fidelity?
Productivity level in Albuquerque. So we are definitely on par. When you look at any of the business quality indicators that we have within Fidelity, Albuquerque is at or above all of those levels for all of our 11 sites across the country. One thing that I didn't hear come up too much today yet that I want to talk about in terms of productivity is our weather. New Mexico was our only site in the history. So we've been open here almost 13 years, or a little over 13 years now, actually. We have never had a weather-related outage, and there is not a single one of our other 11 sites across the country that can say the same. And sometimes they're multiple per year. So if you want to talk about productivity, yes, our workforce is amazing here, and they hit all of their quality indicators. But it's the weather that is really kind of our claim to fame as far as our productivity.
Oh, that's cool. So here, more kind of for Katie. As part of your site search, what were the critical factors specific to our region's labor that clearly demonstrated its ability to meet your needs?
I have so much to say on this, so I'll try to figure out how to say it right. You might have follow-up questions. But we looked at 900 DMAs as where our process started. And I think you'd be interested to know that we had a few business thresholds that had to have a population of, we were looking over 500,000. Right now we have offices in Oakland, which earthquakes, great place to put an office with a contact center. And then we have Shelton, Connecticut, where they get on average, 25 inches of snow or whatnot. So another excellent place to put a contact center. So at the business level, we were looking for mountain and central coverage. And the weather Leanne speaks of, or certainly business continuity, obviously is critical for the brands that we serve. And shockingly, there was another requirement I had, which is I wanted to get on a flight direct from Oakland. I like to be in person. I'm an in-person person. And so the direct flights were also just critically, like, you couldn't meet the business test. On the workforce side, we looked at net migration. A lot of the things that you guys put in here were in our data set. Where are people going because they want to live there? They want to live a quality life. And part of what we were looking at in quality of life living and cost of living was we wanted to be a really attractive employer of choice in the market that we were in. We wanted to be like, I want to be at that company because the wage they pay in all these very expensive markets actually is super attractive in the market. Not to take our wages down, to take our wages actually up. And then we were looking at associate's degree was actually, we don't need a big bachelor degree population. We need well-educated, customer service oriented people. And so we looked at associate's degree. We looked at people who had contact center experience and service oriented. Those were the kind of factors that were helping us decide. And we can get into this in Q&A, but we went down to 4 sites and visited them in depth. Real estate tours, AED, whatever it was. And those 4 sites were San Antonio, Salt Lake City, Boise, and Albuquerque. And what I think you guys should know is that AED here and the people we met, including the people we tend to partner with locally, like outrun and outgun. I mean, you guys, you made other cities. Happy to expand on that because it's such a pleasure to see all of you here because your selling motion, man, I hope it's as good. I hope the delivery is as good as the sales because you guys were absolutely phenomenal compared to the other cities that we went to.
Oh, great. And hopefully we'll have some time for questions. Yes. You've already kind of alluded a little bit to how you connected with talent in the region so far. But what are your plans for future outreach? How do you connect with talent? Yeah.
So how do we connect with talent? We've tried a variety of things here over the 13 years that we've been hiring. So we've been hiring pretty consistently this whole time. And as Cynthia mentioned, we've got about 225 positions open here locally right now. And I'll say this again at the end, but it's fidelitycareers.com. So we've worked again closely with UNM. So they have a variety of programs throughout the year to help with our hiring efforts. They have, this is all, in normal times, but pre-pandemic. They have hiring fairs on campus. They have, they've given us the opportunity to come and speak to classes on occasion. We've hosted some of the scholastic clubs at our building for meet and greet type of events. We always sponsor their etiquette dinner where they get the Anderson kids together to learn how to mix and mingle at events just like this. So that's been very fruitful. And of course, internships have been helpful too. We've gotten some really great candidates through that mechanism as well. But I will say that the biggest way, and I'm sorry, this can't really apply to a brand new company coming into town, but the thing that we found that's been the most effective for us over the last 10 years, so maybe 3 years into our tenure here, is our referrals. Our own employees referring their friends, their family, their neighbors to come work for us here. And that has always netted us the best candidates, is when it's that word of mouth. Hey, I like working here. This is a great place to work. I'd love to see you here too. And I think that speaks to a little bit about what our community is about too. And that there's this family orientation and it's not 6 degrees of separation, it's probably 1 or 2, and chances are somebody who's married to somebody else or is related to somebody else in some way. So you'll learn that quickly here as well. But that referral source, and I think that speaks volumes about our community as well as Stavriotis as an employer.
No, Leanne was part of the, we met Leanne as a process, which we put 2 and 2 together, and we listened to all those. And you have a brand like Fidelity, it's clear. That is not what you have as a small company. But what I will say, I think she was instructive in telling us is, I'm very aware, and certainly in Boise and some of these other markets, we're aware of our California calling card. It is not an asset in many ways. So I'm here to tell you that you can just set that aside. I'm going to try to understand what the local culture is, and we're going to hire a local talent, local leadership. We're going to have a combination of a couple of people that we hope to bring out as pioneers so that they export some of the elements of our culture. But we were very clear that you operate according to your rules here, and I like your rules here. I like what I see. And so I think that referral, we've heard of brands that have come into the market and not really understood that and kind of damaged their employer brand. So we're going very slow on the recruiting, and we want to do it in the right spirit and be that referral source, even if we're smaller, that someone says, this is a great new company. How do I get a job there? So we'll be doing more around that, as we really get up and running.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the great strengths. It's really a small, welcoming community if you appreciate what we have to offer as well. So it will be great. Real quick, you kind of said where to go to get hired. Want to give you a chance to do that too, Katie.
Yeah, it's just lqdigital.com. We have our jobs out there right now. They're listed as remote just because obviously every employee in Albuquerque wants to know, well, where will you be? And I hope to give you that news very shortly. We hope to be done here this week. So, and the jobs are listed there. Although I am happy to say that we have 2 employees already in Albuquerque. They're just working remotely. So I'm officially on the ground, I guess.
All right, we have some time for questions. Yes, all right. So for those of you on the Zoom, you need to follow the on-screen instructions to submit your questions. And then if you're here, just raise your hand. Come on, somebody. Are there any on the screen? Go ahead, Danielle.
Katie, what did you learn about Albuquerque that you didn't expect? What was the most surprising?
For those of you on Zoom,
Yeah.
it was, what's the most surprising thing you learned about Albuquerque and New Mexico with the search?
I don't know if I can say there's any one surprising thing. I didn't know Albuquerque at all, right? Every other city, even cities that were on the 10 list, like Phoenix, I have been to all of them. I I had never been to Albuquerque until I was brought here on a site selection. So
Did it help that you didn't have any sort of notion about an advantage against the builder market?
I don't know if it helped or hurt, but it was easy to be delighted because I didn't really know. And I would just say I found a lot of people that I felt like shared my values. And it was a delight. The sense of humor here is very good. And you know, LQ does not operate without a sense of humor. It is really tedious in your jobs if you do not have a sense of humor. And I found that here.
Despite
Yeah, I hadn't met you, so that might have changed the calculus, but, and so that was really surprising. And I think maybe one thing that was really surprising is how many people had beat me to the punch in Albuquerque. Like, it feels like maybe an unknown asset, but as I got here and there was Netflix and people were thinking about Universal or Facebook was here, AWS, like, it was like, this actually isn't a secret. It's just been a secret to me.
either of you have diversity hiring goals.
Yeah, I see that. You know, diversity is such a hot topic right now. It's always been a focus for Fidelity, but of course it's become even more so over the last year. We don't have a goal, like a number goal that we're trying to hit. We are always looking for diverse candidates, and that takes all shapes and forms. But we've recognized that for years, that we have a better work product when our teams represent the diversity of the customers that we're serving. And so we've always had that in mind. We just released our first diversity report earlier this year, and there's a lot of good news in there, and there's definitely some areas that we need to work on. And New Mexico is a big part of that, because it gives us access to talent in this market that is more diverse than some of our other sites. So that was one of the reasons we came here 13 years ago. It's one of the reasons we're continuing to hire and grow here today. But it's one of many. It's just one of the factors. But it definitely gives us a better outcome when we have diverse teams serving our diverse clients.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed that I didn't mention that. So we just talked about my short list. There's only one city on that list that's living diversity. The rest are talking about it. You guys, I mean, I went to Boise, I went to Salt Lake. Everyone looked like me, for the most part. So we have big diversity goals. We have 5 goals at the executive level. One of them is adding a board member, and it starts all the way from the top down. And for me, I just feel like there's so much talking that goes about it. It's like, you got to do it. And certainly being in a market where that is, it's in the water, it's in the culture, it's in the population, the workforce population. It's not only the right thing to do, it's just good business. So it's absolutely a factor, big factor.
Great. Any other questions?
FidelityCareers.com.
Seriously.
Send your kids.
How young?
Why don't you want us?
Sure, we'll take you too, Jim. 16 weeks training, you'll be ready to go.
Yeah, you have to show up. All right, I'm gonna switch it back over here to Danielle. So thank you.
All right, what a great group. Thank you all so much. Thank you for the facilitation. And as you all see, I'm very talented at making everybody else do all the hard work during the luncheon while I enjoy the food. Anyway, thank you all again. I think we've got a little closing slide here today. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all of you brave or just thrilled and excited folks who got your dry cleaning out of the closet or dusted something off to actually be seen in public. I know I was really excited to not wear yoga pants today. And I was really glad my suit still fit. So, but thank you. And thank you for everyone online watching with us as well. So as promised, following today's program, probably later today or tomorrow, we'll send a link to all of our lovely registrants so that you can download and read the report in full. Again, if you aren't here in person, thumbing through a lovely, beautiful, glossy copy. And if you just cannot wait, you can actually go to our report landing page on our website. This is another way we're going to be promoting it nationally. It's abq.org/talent profile. So if you go to abq.org/talent profile, you can download the full report and just and read it to your heart's desire. So finally, for everybody out there, please do mark your calendars. We have some very cool upcoming programs. We have an ambassador training program, and this is going to be Thursday, May 27 from 3 to 5 p.m. I'm actually opening this up. Our ambassadors training program has always historically been for all of our investors and members. I would really like you to encourage, if you have a friend or a colleague or anybody you know in your company or anywhere in the community, attend this and listen. We're really gonna, my whole goal on this is to create economic development evangelists, educate people on what it is that we're doing, and also get ideas and thoughts and input. And then, and we're also revamping our ambassador program to have a more formal recognition for our certified ambassadors and investors that come to a lot of programs and are true experts in their knowledge on what we do and why we do it. Also, please stay tuned. We have a big critical endeavor that Joe and I have been beating drums on like crazy for, gosh, before I got here. And this is our 2021 strategic plan. It's going to be completed in June and unveiled around the region. And so please save the date. We're going to have an unveiling online, which will probably also be a hybrid program as well. I know the team's excited to plan another one of those logistically, but this has gone really well today. So I think they can do it, no sweat. This is going to be Tuesday, June 29 at 10 a.m. So again, more information on that can be found on the events page on our website, little QR codes on your table, or just go to abq.org/2021 strategy. So with that, thank you all online. Thank you all here for my first in-person event with AED's first breaking out of COVID event, although we've done everything safely and according to all protocol. I say that just to make sure if anybody's watching. Anyway, thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.